Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online Let's Talk videos. So if you guys don't know, there's some changes coming in on this update to off balance. And off balance is put in a really weird place. To where the cooldown of off balance is gonna be it's really gonna affect the in-game PvE experience. And so a lot of people have been looking at ways to improve DPS for the DPS players. One of the things I've been looking at is how can I adjust my damage output to be greater than what it used to be because of the off-balance changes. So the first thing I did out of everything was I looked at my character's overall stuff. So I'm going to show you guys my gear sets right out the door. I'm running 2 pieces of Krogs, as you can see. 5-piece Hundings. It's a 5-1-1 setup, so I'm wearing 5 medium, 1 heavy, 1 light, and then everything else medium. So I can get the 6% Undaunted, I can get all this other stuff, but I'm also running a 5-piece Sunder Flame with it, and as you can see, when you deal damage with a fully charged heavy attack, you deal an additional 907 flame damage, and reduce the enemy's physical resistance by X amount for 8 seconds. Now, since I'm playing a Nightblade, I do have a way of applying Major Breach or Major Fracture, just not Major Breach. And I don't need Major Breach because I'm a stamina DPS, so I'm using the ability to give me the greater DPS. On top of that, I am using Sunder Flame and a Crusher enchant so I can get 10k penetration together. So with this and this, I get 10k penetration. And with the Crusher enchant, as you can see, 3,360 with 2,108, that's 5k penetration. And then with my skill here, Surprise Attack, I also apply Major Fracture, which also reduces their physical resistance by 5,280. So I'm actually getting a 10k penetration. Now, a lot of people will be like, yeah, but it's not going to show the same results, it's going to be different, blah, blah, blah. I did it for a reason. So I can see how much damage potential I can get. Because, see, the one thing we can't test on PTS without a tank is Major Breach, Major Fracture, Crusher Enchant, all that. So I decided, you know what, I'll just put it on my own build. So the way I have the weapons set up is on my main bar I have a Infused with Crusher. On my offhand I'm using a Nirnhoned with a Poison. And on the back bar I'm using Infused with a weapon damage. I'm doing this so I can get the maximum potential damage output, like I said. On to the champion points. So this is where things have changed a little. I said them and haven't even looked at them. So I changed from, left this alone at 43. I put 51 into here, 51 into here. Now this is going to lower your critical damage. But if you're running Trap Beast, you're actually going to have a 31% critical damage increase. And then you're going to get 19% increase to your damage over time. Now, if I show you my skills, which have damage over time, like raining slashes, that's 10k. My blade cloak is still doing roughly about 3k. And then if you go on the back bar, poison injection still almost doing 10k. And this is doing almost 1.5k. And my trap beast actually does 7k damage over time. So I actually get a decent amount of damage over time from these abilities. If you look at my Dawnbreaker even, 12,000 and something. Now I did do some changes. As you can see, I have a really high recovery rate. And the reason I went for the higher recovery rate with this build is to make sure that I have consistency on my rotations. Now I have a 3,400 weapon damage because I gave up 1 weapon damage slot for a recovery. And I'm running Dubious Cameron Throne. Now, if I change my food, I just want to show you guys this. So this is where I'm at right now with this food. If I change to this food, right? And I go in here and I show you my abilities. They didn't change by much, guys. They did change, but they didn't change by that much. And I only went up by 2k stamina. So here I have almost 17k health. As you can see, 17k there, 16k here, 31k stamina, and I still have a decent weapon damage on both bars with decent crit, and I'm not even using my power pot. So if I use my power pot, now I go to 65% crit with a 4k weapon damage on that bar, just about 3.5k here. And I will go over that when I proc the weapon damage. I'll just show you guys real quick. And I go to 4,600 weapon damage. Now, if I had Spell Power Cure on me, I would go actually above 5k weapon damage on the dual wield side. So it's still pretty good, you know, results. Now I'm just going to run a quick parse for you guys here in a second. I'm going to wait for my potion to come off cooldown. And I'm going to buff up. Oops, I did that wrong. My apologies. Now I'm not doing like a true rotation, guys. I'm just doing a quick parse. And this is just how parsing works, by the way, just so you guys know. Parsing is to help you perfect your rotation. Oh my gosh, I'm doing really bad right now. Alright, so that time was 22,041 DPS per second. Not that much, I admit, but I'm not the greatest at rotations. And if I do a rotation, I have to really be in a more stable situation than I am right now. But I'm just showing you guys. So with that, I did 22,041. Now, if I change it over to what we were running before, my DPS will stay about the same. It might go up by a small margin, but it's not going to be enough to make a huge difference. Now, the reason I did this change was to see if it was worthwhile to change to this setting with this here, because we are going to be using light and heavy attacks, and it's going to give us greater results in our rotation. So I just want to show you my outcome here. So my heavy attacks were hitting for roughly about 1,500 per second. They were averaging out to 2 million points of the damage that I did in total out of the 3 million. 200,000. Sorry. And 200,000 in light, heavy attack dual wield. So heavy attack dual wield, rearming trap did pretty good, poison injection, and endless hail. But if you look, my blade cloak wasn't up as much. My assassin scourge wasn't going off, except for every rotation. Krogs wasn't going off as much. Surprise attack. Some of these abilities just weren't doing a whole lot of damage compared to what I was getting from the other thing. Now, my poison glyph was a little off, and I know if I was running a Nirnhone main hand and an infused offhand with poison enchant in the off, you know, or weapon damage in the offhand, poison on the main, poison on the back bar, I would be able to keep consistency of the poison damage. But since I chose to use Crusher to see like if it would help, I just wanted to check. Now I'll go ahead and make a or you know what I'll do? I'll just do this. So we're gonna grab a weapon enchant. We're gonna grab a foulness. We're just gonna to compensate weapon damage and yeah. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to switch these around. So we're going to make this Nirnhone. I need to get some things real quick. And what we're going to do, actually we're going to grab that other foulness as well. Now you guys are probably wondering why foulness. Foulness and disease and poison are going to work out about the same, except for the ticks and damage. So we're going to do this instead. We're going to enchant this with a foulness, this with the foulness, and this with the weapon damage. And we're gonna lose the Crusher altogether. Now, I just want to show you guys why this, like, oh, you'll see. Alright, so, first off, we're going to go to the back bar. We're going to buff up. And we're going to start with this. And there we go, 23,916. That is barely over 2,000 points more in damage. Now, a lot of people will be like, yeah, but that's 2,000 points you could have saved. Yeah, but you know what else I was doing this time around that I wasn't doing, or what I was doing last time around that I'm not doing this time around? Consistency of Crusher. And so, if I were to switch back to the old setup, would it be the same? I could probably get my DPS up if I could maintain a good rotation, yes. And I could probably get my DPS up with this rotation if I could actually do the rotation as good as some of the DPS people But like I said, I'm not very good at doing rotations, and it takes me a long time to master the rotation through lots of practice. I've been playing a lot of different things this week, and this is where I've been doing most of my testing with DPS, is with the Nightblade and a Khajiit, because they're one of the better options to get the most maximized results. Now I could even change more about the build, get a little bit more weapon damage, go back to, poison, all that kind of stuff. But look again. Here, now Befouled Weapon was going off quite a bit in there. But Rearming Trap, Poison Injection, Endless Hail, almost equal to what they were before. A little bit more on this next one. So that's where probably a lot of the damage results were coming from. But look at the heavy attacks and this. It's almost the same. Again, a little bit better on this end, but almost the same. And then you go down here and you look, and we were getting diseased, of course, and poison effect. But everything else is pretty much working out the same as it was before. It's just we got a little bit more DPS. Now, I could, like I said, I could probably go back to the old setup I was running and probably pull higher. Because if you look here, this one I pulled 22,005, and that was my first rotation with the build. 20,000 with my second rotation. 22,000 with my third. Not quite as high as here. And this one was 23. I could probably make the same consistency with either of the builds. So it's not a matter of, maximizing DPS. It's about maximizing character potential. And that's another reason why I built into the high recovery rate, was because if you noticed, I maintained my resources through that encounter, no problem. And I could do the same on the other target skeleton. And I wouldn't even need to do a full heavy attack rotation, because that wasn't a full heavy attack rotation. It was only heavy attacks on the front bar. So even over here, I can probably maintain a good steady amount of stuff. And I just wanted to show you guys what kind of testing I'm doing versus what a lot of other people are doing. Now I'm running a typical setup that one like a DPS would run on in-game. They would run Krogs or Veladriths, they would run Hunting's Rage, and they would run Sunderflame. Or they'd run Night Mother's Gaze and Vicious Ophidian. Or they'd run Twin Serpents, or what I mean. They'd run something like that. They would run a Maelstrom Bow every time, and they will always run the dual wield from this. Now here's the sad thing about this: when I swap bars, I lose the Sunderflame benefits. I lose the 5-piece benefit. So my fully charged heavy attacks, that 8 seconds, I can only be on the back bar for 8 seconds. Otherwise, I lose the Sunderflame. That's why after you activate the Blade Cloak, you have to do a heavy attack. And if you're not activating Blade Cloak every rotation, then you have to do other things. But it was basically to show consistency with recovery. And I don't know if you guys could see that, how much recovery I'm getting back. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and let that wear off. But I'm going to show you guys how much I'm just going to go over here and beat on this guy for a minute, because I'm going to let those other things wear off. Let's see if I can lose enough stamina. Now here goes my heavy attack. See, I'm getting a lot more back than what the average player does, because I built into the idea of heavy attacks returns resources, and I have a good stamina recovery. Because the way stamina recovery or resource return works from a heavy attack is, right now I have a 40%. So I'm going to go out here, I'm going to get my calculator. You guys can see my cool website thing. So with my recovery rate being 1593, without, and we'll do it with the power pot just so you can see, it is 1793. So we'll do this, 1793 divided by 40%, because this is what I have for stamina recovery for my heavy attacks. I get an extra 1700 or 717 added to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go 1793 plus, I get 2,510 plus this every time I do a heavy attack. So I get 4,303 of my resources back whenever I do a heavy attack. Because when you do a heavy attack, you get your resource return, which is the 70% or the 40% on top of your normal return, which is 717 points. That gets added to your return, making it 2,510. Then it takes 2 seconds to complete a heavy attack, so you get that resource return, that same amount. Now watch what happens down here. I'm going to do it again, but I'm going to go over here and I'm going to use my potion, which I just popped, so I have the 1793. I'm going to go ahead and beat this thing down some. Alright, here goes my heavy attack. Now watch this. 17 to 21 to 25 to 28. Because it's delayed because of the way the schedule, the timing works. But even with that delay, I'm still getting that huge, I'm getting that much larger amount of resources back, which makes it more consistent and viable for somebody to hold their maintain their recovery or their resource even in a trial setting. Because it's all about resource management. It's all about making sure that you're giving the fullest potential of your character. And using a thing like a power pot, not only does it give you the weapon damage and the crit, it also gives you the stam recovery. Now I've done this build without the stam recovery, and I have to play almost a full-on heavy attack build to keep my resource management under key. Now, the other nice thing about playing a Nightblade is we do have this ability, and a lot of people don't like this ability because it returns so little. Well, you got to think, that's another 106 on top of that 4,303. So that's 4,409 I'm getting back from my heavy attacks. Plus, I'm getting healed from it. That's why you want to make sure you have a good recovery rate, is so that way you can manage your resources. And this is with the Khajiit, guys, and this is only one stamina recovery glyph. That's it. One. With Dubious Cameron Throw. Now I've done this with a Red Guard. Red Guard, you will have like 35k stamina with 1500, almost 1600 recovery rate. On a High Elf or a Wood Elf, you'll have a 34k stamina just about, or 33k stamina with a 16k health and like a 1800 recovery rate. Because wearing 5 pieces of medium, what does it have in it? Resource management. It has stamina recovery. Nobody's building on the stamina recovery idea. Nobody's building on the magicka recovery idea. They're building for pure DPS. Now, I'm not saying pure DPS is the only, is a bad thing. Building into DPS is a good thing. That's what I did here. I built into DPS to maximize my potential. Now I want to show you something else. This is my weapon damage, by the way. 3584. Now it is 100, or it is 84 more than what I had the other way, because I had 3500 the other way with the Nirnhone offhand and main hand infused. So I'm getting the same amount of weapon damage. So when I buff up with my power pot, I'm at 4181, which is a little bit higher weapon damage. I'm not gonna deny that. Oops, and it's on this bar. 4814. That's as high as it got. My weapon damage did. And that's with my potion and the weapon damage enchant. 4818. Now the other one, if I remember right, I was at like almost 48. I was at almost 5k as well. And that's running Nirnhone offhand. Nirnhone offhand is actually better than Nirnhone mainhand. Nirnhone mainhand, yes, does give you a little bit more DPS, but Nirnhone offhand is better because you can put an infused thing on the main bar and use the offhand to proc that poison enchant or whatever. And you can use the main hand to either proc the weapon damage or the crusher enchant, whatever you want, and you're still going to get benefit over it. So if I go over here and I change this again to that other thing, I'm going to end up with the same results. If I change it to the weapon damage offhand or on the bow, I'm going to get the same results. And that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, you can change the build only so much and get the same results. You change it too much, you're not going to get any better results. And this is an end game setup. This is a max level end game trial setup. This is what most people will run. And the reason why is because they get greater penetration from Krogs, they get penetration from Sunderflame, and you're running Hunting's Rage, which is going to maximize your weapon damage. You're running Sunderflame, which is going to maximize your max stamina, weapon damage, and critical. And this is actually a much better setup for a Khajiit anyways, because this gives you max stam, this gives you max stam. If I was to run, say, Night Mother's Gaze, I'd actually lose the stamina, so I'd actually be at 3k here, or 30k. Almost 30k. Now, running all stamina glyphs is fine, but you have to take away from your health, which is funny. You have to take away from your health pool, or your stamina pool, and put into health. This, I can dump everything into stamina. And I'm getting almost the same amount that somebody playing this build with the opposite setup would have. If I change the tri-stats into all stamina glyphs, I have to make up 1,000 health. Well, the only way to do that is to go in here, respec, and we're gonna go in and do this. We're actually gonna go with 9 into it. Nope, can't do it because we're gonna need a little bit over that. Now it gave me a whopping 300 points over what I had before. But the other one, I didn't have to put anything into stamina. I had it already, or into health. I had it already. And now if I use dual stat food, the old dual stat food, it's going to put me in 19k 34. So if I do it based around that, so I'm going to respec. I just want you guys to see. So 17k, right, on the front bar. 17 on the back bar. That's without any thing going on. That's just with the food. So if I did it this way, with just dual stat food without the extra recovery, and I go and parse on that thing, am I going to get better results in my return? So we're going to use a food. We're going to use a this is with recovery food, or that food, the regular food. Now we're going to pop a potion. We're going to be at 2222. So let's go check this out. $488. So I'm going to get 1710 plus 1222. $2,932 stamina return on a heavy attack versus 4,303. I'm losing over 1,000 in my return from my heavy attacks. Now, can I manage with that? Yeah, I can manage. Can I do a full rotation with that? Sure. Am I going to be able to manage my resources and everything? Yep. So let's do the whole thing here. And 24,000. Not even 500 more damage with that rotation. Now, was that a little bit better rotation? Actually, it was a lot worse. It wasn't quite as good as last one. So what I pulled more DPS with the having the greater stamina pool, because now this is doing a little bit more damage. This is doing a little bit more damage. Blade Cloak's doing more damage. This is doing a little bit more damage. If you guys haven't noticed, the weapon, the damage on the abilities has only been going up by instrumental amounts of like 100 here, 100 there, 200 here, that kind of thing. Because your stamina pool doesn't add as much to your total overall damage as your weapon damage does. It just gives you the resource. It does improve the damage, but only by a small amount. And that's because of the way the stamina to damage ratio is. Or magic to damage ratio is. It's for every 40 points of stamina, according to what I've read, it's 1 point of damage. So if you take the amount of stamina I have, 35,450. I get 886 damage added to some of my tooltips. Most of my tooltips are derived from weapon damage mainly. Now, not all things are like that, but you got to think about this. For weapon damage, it's a 1-to-1 ratio. So, weapon damage 3,584. With my potion, with my increased weapon damage thing here, I'm going to try and get it to proc. Okay, now let's go in here and look. Now that's doing a lot more damage. This is doing a lot more damage. This is doing a lot more damage. I lost the benefit. It fell off. You're getting way more weapon damage, or more from weapon damage than you do from your own stamina increases. And I can change, I can even prove it, because I can just do this and show you guys. 33,000. 11,390. And that's without, or that's with, yeah, without the power pot. So you guys can see that. 11,390. $11,685. Now, if I were to divide that in half, so if I were to, 11,390 minus 11,685, 295 point difference. And then we divide this, say, by 40. That means 7 points of stamina, or for the 7 stamina, it came up to give me 295. That's 7.375. Now, people say I don't show enough math, so I figured I'd show some math. Now, my math might be a little off. I'm not going to lie. It might be a little off. But what I'm showing you guys is that even though you think that these major changes that these people are making in their in-game builds, like even if I put an extra weapon damage on there, would it improve my overall damage? Of course it will. It'll increase it more than having a stamina recovery. But the consistency of return versus damage output is more important in most cases, because most DPS starve for resources. They might have a huge resource pool, but they're starving for resources in return. That's where spear shards come into play. That's where orbs come into play. That's where all these synergy things come into play. But it doesn't just affect DPS. It affects tanks and it affects healers as well. Nobody is building for the resources. They're building for mass pool of resource, but no management of resource other than, oh, hey, I'm going to throw out some heavy attacks with a 40% return and expect to get a large amount. Now, if you take away how much resource return I have, and grab a jewelry, we're going to grab one more physical harm, which is going to increase our weapon damage. 817. I'm going to do this for you guys. 817 divided by 40% is 362. Oops. $1,996. That is literally almost exactly 1,000 less than this. So you're getting 2,000 stamina back per attack, per heavy attack. This is where the problem lies, though. 1620, 2066, 2228, 1400 and something, 3000 almost, 3000, 2000 almost, 2600, 2000. Now remember, what I was showing you guys, when you're getting 2000 back every attack, every heavy attack, you can maintain your resources really easy with heavy attacks. But do you want your resource pool to go to 0? Never do you want it to reach 0, because that means you have to do more heavy attacks consecutively to get your resources back. But if you build into resource management, you don't have to. And you don't have to build much into it. You just need one. You just need the one. That's it. Can you do better with Dubious Cameron Throne? Sure can, but you're going to be really low on that health. So how do you fix that? You put tri-stats on your glyph, on your gear, so you don't have to make up that difference. Is it going to hurt your stamina pool or your damage output? Remember, that's 11,390, by the way. Oh, I can actually do this. Just go in here. Remember, it was 11,390. 11,120. So 390 points down to 320. And you got to remember, that's 11,000 over 9 seconds. So that's now 11,120 over 390. So you are going to lose some DPS, but it's not so big it's going to kill you. Now we can also do this and see what it's going to look like when you're all buffed up. Oops. $13,190, 10K. You're still doing good damage like this. Now I'm just showing you guys, like I said, just simple mathematics. That's it. Simple mathematics showing you guys how this stuff works in the end game. And you got to remember, with this kind of return, 1793, you're going to get back 4,303 per heavy attack. So just imagine now what you can do. Now I'm going to show you guys what you can do with this kind of a build, because nobody will quite understand. Now you guys saw my rotation earlier where I was doing a lot of heavy attacks, very little light attacks. Now with this kind of a setup, I'm going to let my recovery kick in. Fully maxed out. Alright, here we go. So I'm going to buff up. 22,971, and I made a lot of mistakes, guys. But as you can see, consistency versus the other things. So we can go in here and we can look. Starting at the very beginning, I had 22,516, 20,000, 22,041, 23,917, 23,000, 22,041, 23,000, going down, 24,438, and then all the way down to the bottom, 22,971. Very consistent to the same amounts. Yes, some were 2,000 greater, some were less, but if you had this rotation and you could master it to where you could do one heavy attack in every both rotation, like both bar rotations. So if you did light attack rotation through both bars and then heavy attacked in one of those rotations, you could maintain your resources indefinitely without the aid of spear shards, if you know how to do it right. That means my suggestion would be every time you do twin slashes, so every time you do your rotation, starting from here, okay, you're going to start with beat the trap. You're going to light attack right afterwards, poison injection, light attack, endless hail, light attack, switch bars, twin slashes, heavy attack, then this light attack, blade cloak, light attack, switch bars, trap beast, light attack, poison injection, light attack, endless hail, light attack. Then you should have this up to where you can fire it off, pressing this to keep those things consistent. You guys aren't even seeing all the attacks because I'm doing them so fast. And that's without a potion going just now. Even with a potion going, I'd have greater recovery. I have almost the cost of most of my abilities in recovery. So now you got to look at this. It takes 1 second to activate this ability and make it go off. Takes 1 second to do a light attack. By the time I get to this, I've already recovered the cost of this. This is basically free now, because I'm getting it back. Even though I'm activating it, I'm getting the resource back so quick, because it's in 2 seconds, I'm getting its cost back, plus some. Then when I go to activate this ability, I'm going to activate, it's going to use some of the cost. I'm going to light attack, and when I light attack to go to apply this ability, I'm getting back 1,700 of the cost of this. Then you move on to this, and you move on. By the time I get here, what I spent in these two, I'm already getting back what I have left over in cost from these two, which is just over, roughly over about 600. I'm going to get most of it back when I do this. Or even when I activate this and I swap bars, and I get here, and then I get here. I'm getting most of my resources back from what it cost me to utilize these things. And that's the way you have to, you kind of have to focus on it. So, if the cost of your abilities is, say, 3,000 or 2,000, like most of these ones are, almost 2,000, you have half the cost in recovery. Just half the cost. That means you have to do a light attack, or should be doing a light attack every 3 attacks. Every 3 things. So when you do ability, light attack, ability, light attack, ability, heavy attack, you can maintain your resources almost indefinitely that way. Now, if it's like what it is right now, you can do light attack, light attack, light attack, or ability, light attack, ability, light attack. You can do a whole bar before you even need to think about a heavy attack. But because we're almost at 2,000, you can actually do it this way. Light attack rotation on the bow, swap bars, light attack rotation on the main bar, and end with a heavy attack off of the front bar. So when you hit that blade cloak, you heavy attack. It'll give you a huge chunk, 4K of your resources back. So all those extra expenditures you have just came back from that heavy attack, and you should be almost back to full. Now these are the things that I test when I test on PTS. I look at all these different parameters and not just focus on one thing. I don't focus on just maximizing my damage output. I maximize my character's potential. Because that's what it's about. It's about maximizing your character's potential to work within the group dynamic. If your character doesn't fit within the dynamic, you have to rely on many other things to carry you. The more you have to rely on others to carry you with resource management and all that kind of stuff, the worse it can hurt you as a player. Having potions is a good thing. It keeps consistency of return. But when you're going through as many resources as most players do, potions don't cover it. Being built into having resource management built into your character, resource recovery built into your character, you can manage your resources a lot easier than most other players, which gives you consistency of your rotation, gives you better damage potential in the long run, because you don't have to worry about things. Now, you think about this. Okay, I got a dodge, roll, and attack, okay? So I used not very much. So I'm sitting here fighting, I'm doing my rotation, you know, that kind of thing. All of a sudden, major attack. I dodge roll. I come out of that dodge roll, I heavy attack. Why? To get those resources back plus some. The game is all about resource management, guys. Whether you want to admit it or not, it is. It's about resource management. It's about micromanaging your character. Micromanaging is resource management. It's about making sure you have the potential to maximize your DPS, not just for yourself, but also for your group. So me, as one DPS running a Crusher enchant, is that going to affect my group's total DPS? Yes. Does that mean everyone in the group has to run one? No. And what does that allow tanks to do if the DPS is running, one DPS is running a Crusher? Well, it means that they can use a weakening enchant, or they can run a hardening enchant, so that way they have greater survivability. Because the tank's job is to survive, not to die. Now, a lot of people will be like, yeah, but they can do that with very limited resources. Yeah, if you're a skilled player, you can. But if you're not a skilled player, you need those tools that the devs give you to play that role. So having a tank with a decent stamina recovery, because you're using a stamina damage shield, you're blocking with stamina. Every time you heavy attack, you get more resources back because you are wearing heavy armor. Heavy armor, the passive, Revitalize, gives you stamina or magicka back based on your heavy armor. Like how much points they have in here. So that's 25%. Now remember, I'm only getting 40%. In heavy armor, I'm getting 65%. And if I had 1700 stamina recovery, let's just do it based off of this one. So 1793 is the baseline. Now, let's say I get 40, or I get 65%. I'm getting 1,065 back. So I'm just going to do that just so I can remember that 1,065. So 1793 plus 1,065 equals 2,958. Add 1793 again, and I'm getting 4,751. That is way more than this, and I'm getting that back every heavy attack as a tank. Now, it takes me 2 seconds. Do I have enough time in any combat situation to do a heavy attack? Yes, even against Rakat, even against the Axes, even against those. Because guess what that means? It means my healer actually has to do their job and heal me every once in a while. instead of me doing the healer's job for them and me healing myself and trying to maintain myself so the healer doesn't have to. Now, I'm not saying that's what happens, but that's sure in the hell what it feels like sometimes. Now, it's good to take stress off your healer. It really is. But at the same time, the tank and healer roles are some of the most demanding mentally. They are the most stressful jobs in the game. Because if a mistake happens, 90% of the time you are to blame. Not the healer, or not the DPS. The healer and tank are. Because if the tank goes down, what happens to the group? Potential wipe. Unless you're running 2 tanks. Now, let's say you have 2 healers. If you have 2 healers in your group, and one of them, they both go down, what does that mean? Potential wipe. If your DPS go down, it doesn't mean anything. Ooh, loss of damage. Whoop-de-doo. We'll make it up in a few seconds. It's a loss of damage. But when you lose a tank, who is the one who is there to mitigate the damage and absorb most of that damage, and to avoid, or to have the resources to do that, if they go down, it's a loss of a group. Now, the meta is designed to be min-maxed into perfection and all this kind of stuff to where they're playing this way. What I'm showing you as a basic player, as an average player, not as a master, you know, meta player, but as an average player, these kind of setups that I show you are mathematically better. Because the average player doesn't have the skill to play at those levels the meta players do. You try playing Outcast rotation. Try it sometime. Go ahead and practice it for a few hours, in fact. And show me 46k parses. In perfection. You can't. Show me Gilliam's parses with perfection. You can't, because you're not as skilled as they are with those rotations. You actually have to practice those rotations religiously almost to be able to pull off those kind of rotations. Now, some people do have the hand-eye skill coordination from it, but a lot of people don't. In fact, I would say a vast majority of the community in the game does not. So building your character to be less reliant on resources from somebody else through spear shards and stuff, making them more focused onto themselves in a way. It's not being selfish, because you're not being selfish. You're playing the build. You're playing the character. And you're adjusting for the flaws. Because all characters are flawed. Any MMO you play, you're flawed. Even a DPS is flawed. They're the weakest. They're glass cannons. Healers are flawed. They're glass healers. Tanks are flawed. They're just meat shields. But when you take that combination and put it together, that's where everything shines. But you have to be self-reliant just as much as you are reliant on your group. Because the more you rely on your group, the less you rely on yourself, the more mistakes you're going to make, and you're going to fail. So it's good to focus on being self-reliant. Even as a tank, even as a healer, you've got to be self-reliant. Because not everyone can do your job. If a healer goes down and you're down to 1 healer for, say, 5 seconds, that could mean a party wipe. 1 tank goes down and the other tank's on the verge because there's only 1 healer left. That can be a party wipe. But that's what I'm getting at. Like, you have to play this game to its to your character's potential. If you play it to the meta potential and you're skilled enough, yeah, you can play it. But if you're not, building to the advantages or the disadvantages your character has helps. It makes you self-reliant. And the more self-reliant you become, the less the more you master self-reliancy, the less you'll see any mistakes in your character's playstyle. Now, when you get to the skill level of, say, meta, then you can adjust these things and go to more meta playstyle. But I'm just showing you guys how and why I'm testing all these things. Because, see, I don't look at just the end game crowd, because there's more to the game than just the end game. Than just trials and dungeon runs and PvP. Because how do you get there? What do you need to get there? Well, nobody tells you. And then once you get there, they want you to be wearing stuff or using stuff, as I'm showing here, that you need to get from in-game. Well, how do I get that gear and that equipment if I can't get it without being at that level of play already? You have to build to be self-reliant. You have to build your character to be a character within the game's design. The game itself clearly shows we have to utilize recovery, because it wouldn't be here if it wasn't needed. We have to build into resource pools. If it wasn't here, it wouldn't be needed. Same thing goes with weapon damage, spell damage, crit, all that. Just like survivability, the resistances. You have to utilize your character's stuff. That's why I set this build up the way I did. I run a heavy chest, light belt. Everything else medium. Because I actually get the greatest amount of resistances in this setup than any other. And the other great thing about this build is when I do utilize certain abilities, like when I do swap bars, I do drop to 17k health, which is fine. I'm still at 17k health. And then when I use this ability, sorry, now look at my resistances, 17, 17. Now that doesn't last long. That's gone in a few seconds. It's gone in 5 seconds. And then I'm back down to the lower resistances. Now, like I said, I'm just testing. This is just me doing some simple testing. I wanted to show you guys what I do, so you guys can see for yourselves. Now, do all that stuff you saw there in the calculator, I already have most of it memorized, so I don't even use a calculator very much anymore. I just look at the number values. I look at these, and I build around these. I don't use a calculator anymore. There's no reason. Just like with the champion points. And if you guys really want to see something crazy, look how I have my champion points set up. 35, 56, 51, 51, 43. And that's for just the damage side. That doesn't even include survivability. Resource management. Because you do block, even as a stamina DPS, you do block some attacks. So having a 10% reduced cost saves you resources. Having a 20% or 40% reduced cost in dodge rolling saves you resources. Having the high recovery rate makes you manage those resources. Watch this. That was one dodge roll, and I almost got all the resources back right afterwards. Within 2 seconds of me dodge rolling, I had them back. Because of the way resource management or resource return works in the game. Now, like I said, you can use potions, you can use orbs, you can use spear shards, you can use all that kind of stuff. But if you aren't reliant on yourself first and become comfortable in that situation, you'll never become reliant on your teammates later when you don't have that stuff. So always build into your character first, then build into others. And unfortunately, guys, as you guys can hear, I got a phone ringing in the background. I need to go. But sorry it was a long video, guys. I just want to kind of cover that stuff, like I said. So if you guys like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. If you guys want to see more videos by me, hit that subscribe button. Other than that, thanks for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day. And this guy might see you in game. Bye.